A quick query from the Radisco database to the sales.customer table shows the two records that we added earlier, Mattress King and Kusharama. Well, if we wanted to make an update back to Kusharama with a K, we can go update sales.customer and set the customer name equals, and let's do Kusharama with a K. And we'll do that just for customer 2. All right, pretty simple statement, except it says failed because I can't update a read-only database. Now, notice this database appears gray in the Object Explorer. This is kind of a lead-in to the fact that every database has its own set of properties. Let's get the properties of Radisco and see what's causing this. Okay, we go on the Options page, and notice there is a property here called Read-Only Database, and it's set to True. Let's set that to False. Click OK. And now notice it's in a normal color. We run this update statement again. It says 1 row affected, and a query confirms we have Kusharama with a K. So this chapter is going to explore more about changing and figuring out your database options, both through the user interface and through code. Let's look at our table again, and we've got the Kusharama with a C right now. We want to change it to a K. Now notice that I have turned the Radisco database back to read-only. So what's going to happen here? Obviously, it's going to error out. Failed, it's read-only. So what I want to do is I want to change it back to read-write. Now let's look at the property first just to verify. Yep, it is set to read-only true. Let's change this to false by running the following code. Alter database Radisco set read _ write. Run this. It says completed successfully. Why is this still gray? Well, you can refresh your screen anytime you want. Now we can see it's yellow. That means the read-only limitation is turned off, or it's set to false. So we just changed this to false through code. Now we can make updates. Let's make the update back to Kusharama with a K. Check our results. It is Kusharama with a K. Now, let's change our database back to read-only. Run it. Now, let's change it to Kusharama, just for fun. Try to execute it. It says, sorry, it's read-only. Well, let's check. Did this code really flip that property in the user interface too? Yep, it's set to read-only true. Because both of these properties are set to the same piece of metadata. There's just two ways to look at it. You can set it here in the user interface, or you can set it with code. There's another database option called AutoShrink. Now that gets back to your MDF files. And what it is let's say that data content in your data is actually shrinking. Now you might predict that it's going to shrink for a while and then grow back again. So you don't want your MDF file to shrink and then regrow, so you want to continue to reserve that extra space. In that case, I would want the auto shrink off. But if you want to periodically pull your database and say, why don't you give back some hard drive space if the database shrinks and you don't need the space anymore, then you can set auto shrink to on. Now currently, let's look at Radisco's auto shrink property. Currently, the auto shrink is set to false. In other words, it's not on. Now let me set it to true and click OK. Notice I just set it to true. But if I turn it off with the code, and I go back into the properties, and click the options page, it is again set to false. Well, what code would I have to type to make it true? Do I turn this to on? Let's say that I didn't know. And let's say you wanted to do multiple properties at once and you didn't know the code. You wanted to do two changes. Number one, you want to set the auto shrink property to true. Number two, you want to set the read-only to false. And if you click OK, they'd be done. But what if you wanted to know what the code was for that? Instead of hitting OK, go up to the Script button and script the action to a new window, click Cancel, and it'll show you exactly what code will achieve just what you've done. Notice I'm still read-only, and I'm still not auto-shrinking. Run both of these pieces of code, refresh the databases, get the properties. Notice on the options page, auto-shrink is now true, and my read-only is set to false. Lab 2.3, Skill Check 1. Use T-SQL code to set properties for the Radisco database as follows. Set ANSI nulls enabled to true, set auto close to true, and set database read-only to false. Skill Check 2. Reset each property of Radisco as follows by using T-SQL code. ANSI nulls enabled should be false. Auto close should be false, and database read-only should be set to true.